Legend tells of a gold mine, located in the southwestern United States, claimed to be home to millions if not billions of dollars worth of gold. The Lost Dutchman's mine is believed to be located in the Superstition Mountains, and every year countless people go missing while searching for the treasure. Here are 5 of those cases. Number 5. Jesse Capen. The remains of Jesse Capen, also known as the Gentle Giant, were found on Superstition Mountain. Jesse had worked as a night bellman in downtown Sheridan for almost 12 years, all the while dreaming of searching for the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Finally, in November of 2009, Jesse had saved enough money to trade his car in for a Jeep, then took a month-long vacation to search for the legendary treasure. However, Jesse got a bit more than he bargained for when he became a part of the legend he had been researching so much about, venturing off never to be seen again. When Jesse left for his adventure, he had told his mother that he'd try to call her regularly, but the first call she got from Arizona was from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, notifying her that her son had gone missing. They'd found his camp and Jeep on Tortilla Mountain, but he was nowhere to be found. His mother and father then headed to the camp and searched the area, but found nothing. The Superstition Search and Rescue Group kept looking, though, and found a note he left on top of Tortilla Mountain on December 4th, 2009. However, in 2012, 3 years after Capen had headed off into the wilderness, searchers discovered a body on Tortilla Mountain, just a half-mile from Capen's camp. The searchers said it looked like Jesse had simply slipped off the edge and fallen to the ground 180 feet below, and DNA confirmed, to his mother's dismay, that the bones did belong to her son. It's tragic to hear of someone's passing due to such a small mistake. However, if there's any takeaway from Jesse's story, it's to never travel these types of areas alone. Always ensure you pack the proper gear and both you and your partners are properly experienced in the type of terrain you're exploring. It's such a simple mistake to avoid if the proper protocols are taken. Number 4. The Peralta Stones. In 1949, a man was on vacation driving along the Superstition Mountains with his family. He was so intrigued by the sight of Weaver's Needle that he pulled over to get a closer look. As he approached, he felt a hard rock under his feet, which he was able to dig up, revealing 2 stone tablets. One had the carving of a horse on it, and the other had a priest. They also contained carvings that seemed to be some sort of a map with the year 1847 etched into it. The man became fascinated with these stones and returned to the same area a year later to find 2 smaller stones, one being a heart and one with the recession in the middle in which the heart fit perfectly into. The other stone was a trail map. However, before the man could follow the trail on his own, he passed away, leaving the stones to his wife. His wife believed the stones were somehow cursed and passed them on to another man named Travis Marlowe. These stones are thought to belong to the mysterious Peralta family, who are an extremely powerful Mexican family from the 1700s and 1800s. Legend says that they knew where the secret Lost Dutchman gold mine was located and had been mining it for generations. There's been much debate as to the authenticity of the stones and what they may mean. Many do believe they hold the secrets to revealing the location of the Lost Dutchman's mine. It's also rumored that there are other stones out there that have not yet been discovered.
The treasure maps, and this is amazing.
Treasure maps, map of the desert, a couple of important things that you'd have to show on a map in order to use it. You have to show compass orientation and direction of travel. And directly over the C in Kabbalah, which is a misspelled word, is a very small letter E for este or east. And that compass orients that portion of the map right there. And the way they traveled in those days would be line of sight. They'd pick a distant object and they'd travel to it. In this particular case, that wavy line right above that little cross is the Gila River. After you make that trek across the desert, you see the horse that represents the Superstition Mountains.
Now let me ask you, why does the horse represent Superstition Mountains?
Right. The horse was represented because that's what the mountain looked like. Here's the horse's head. There's his ears.
Oh yeah.
There's his head. Now this is poorly shadowed because this was an early morning photograph. If it were a later day photograph, then this portion of the mountain would be clear where you could see the muzzle and the cheekbone of the horse.
Wow.
And then this ridge line right here represents the mane that comes down off the horse on the stone maps. There's no other mysticism associated with it. It just happens to be that's what that mountain looked like. The tail disappears behind the horse. So that told me perhaps it's time to go around to the back of the map. And when you do, There's another map.
Number 3. J. Clapp's missing skull. J. Clapp was a photographer and prospector who is most well known for his work around the Superstition Mountains. He had been working these mountains for over 15 years, and many believe that he was coming extremely close to unlocking the secrets of the Lost Dutchman's mine. However, in 1964, Jay mysteriously went missing. It wasn't until 3 years later that his body was found. The only means of identification on him were his 2 cameras with his initials JC carved into them. But this story gets even weirder, as Jay's skull was not found with his body. Search teams spread all around the local area, but his skull was never found, and to this day, his skeleton remains headless. However, this isn't the only time that remains around the Superstition Mountains have been found headless. In fact, more than 5 bodies discovered in recent years have had their heads either missing or displaced miles away. It's unclear exactly what causes this to happen, but many believe it to be the Dutchman's curse, leading all who search for the treasure to meet with a terrible fate. Number 2. Adolph Ruth. Adolph Ruth, a 76-year-old Washington, D.C. resident, disappeared into the Superstition Mountains in June of 1931 while searching for the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. His skull was discovered 6 months later under a tree, and the rest of his remains were found in January of 1932 in a creek about a quarter mile from where his head had been found. Even though his skull clearly indicated that he had been shot with a large caliber weapon, the Maricopa County coroner ruled his passing to be the result of natural causes. Over 85 years later, his disappearance and passing are still debated. The records of the 1931 missing persons investigation were destroyed in March of 2008. The files were sealed by a court for over 50 years until 1982, when they became public record. In the 26 years prior to them being destroyed, only a few individuals took the time to gain access to the files and copy what they could of the information. The information contained within these files is drastically different from what was publicly known and believed concerning Adolph Ruth's passing. The files directly contradicted so much of what was publicly believed to be fact surrounding Ruth's disappearance. The commonly believed story is that Adolph Ruth traveled to Arizona in May of 1931 to stay at Tex Barley's ranch, at the edge of the Superstition Mountains. A month later, it's told that 2 of the Tex Barkley cowboys took Ruth into the Superstitions to camp in a place known as Willow Spring. It's further told that Tex Barkley was away at the time selling cattle and didn't know that the cowboys had taken Ruth into the mountains, as he would not have allowed this, given that the weather was reaching over 100 degrees Fahrenheit most days. When the 2 cowboys went to check on Ruth a week later, he was nowhere to be seen. Tex Barkley was said to be very upset and called the sheriff to sound the alarm and inform the public that Ruth was missing. In the end, the investigation stalled with a large amount of superstition, though nowhere near enough evidence to bring anyone to trial. It also appears, if you read between the lines, that the political circumstances of the time and certain prominent citizens may have played a role in interfering with the investigation. The investigation established that Ruth's camp in Willow Spring was the last time anyone saw him alive. This was in Pinal County, and both Ruth's skull and his remains were eventually found in Pinal County, though they were quite a ways apart from each other. Yet, it was the Maricopa County Sheriff James McFadden whom Ruth's disappearance was reported to, and it was Maricopa County who handled the search, investigation, and final cause of passing for Adolph Ruth. But it was the authority and responsibility of Pinal County to handle this issue, and they could not legally hand the responsibility to anyone else. The only reason that Maricopa County would have handled the Ruth investigation was if the investigators knew for a fact that Adolph Ruth had died in Maricopa County, not Pinal County, meaning his body was likely moved, indicating that he had been murdered in one county and his body had been dumped in another. The burial certificate for Adolph Ruth is the final thing to note here. The doctor that filled out the burial certificate listed the cause of his passing as unknown and intended to amend it later, indicating it as either a suicide or homicide, though the Maricopa County coroner had already listed it as due to natural causes. How could a gunshot wound to the head be considered natural causes? The mystery of Adolph Ruth still raises concern to this day, but the last person involved with the investigation passed in 1980. Because of this, we may never know what happened to Adolph Ruth in the Superstition Mountains. Number 1. Joseph Kelly. In 1957, Joseph Kelly, a resident of Dayton, Ohio, set out to the Superstition Mountains in search of, you guessed it, the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. However, he went missing and was never heard from again. It took 2 years before a search and rescue team managed to find his body. It was determined that he had been shot in the head directly from above. However, the coroner ruled his passing as an accident. How exactly could someone have been shot from directly above and it not have been murder? Well, this is a question that Joseph's family has been asking for decades, though it doesn't appear any new information on this case is being released any day soon. This story is just another in a seemingly endless supply of mysterious disappearances from the Superstition Mountains. Do you believe this many disappearances could be the result of the Dutchman's legendary curse, condemning all those who search for the treasure? Or do you even believe that this mine existed in the first place? Well, scientists claim that the Superstition Mountains don't contain the proper types of minerals that could even produce gold, meaning that the Dutchman's mine may just be a myth. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and check out our channel for all of our future videos.